I'm the Director of Corporate Planning Services at the Darebin City Council, and I firstly would like to congratulate MAV on an excellent summit, and particularly John Hennessy for a terrific way of putting this together, so congratulations. Okay, my role at Darebin leads planning, building and the 6 core areas of corporate services. And following on from a couple of the speakers yesterday, I just wanted to confidently say that innovation in terms of change is definitely part of the day-to-day business at Darebin as we embark on an agenda of change. And some examples of that, the use of a citizen-centric collaboration model within our strategic planning unit, the planning scheme amendments, the creation of a project management office to ensure a whole of organisation response to place management, urban renewal within the Latrobe Employment Cluster within Plan Melbourne, our community solar panel initiative, our ethical decision-making framework which we've implemented, and our local government leading participative budgeting project. You always got to be careful trying to get that out. We call it PB, it's easy to pronounce, which is also being embarked on by the Melbourne City Council and the Sydney City Council as we speak. John asked me to sort of wrap this up a bit, and I just wanted to say that my vision on the future of local government in Victoria sees MAV taking a lead role to facilitate change across local government, so that local government can set a clear agenda to the state government that it is working collaboratively with a future focus to reduce costs and improve productivity and effectiveness. Indeed, this objective has been made all the more critical by cost shifting from state government to local government, and with the negative impacts of the federal budget announced last week on local government, such as the indexation of financial assistance grants frozen for the next 3 years, estimated by MAV to be around $134 million lost over the period for the provision of essential local services and infrastructure for local communities. So to work collaboratively with a future focus to reduce costs and improve productivity and effectiveness, I believe a clear plan for the future, or roadmap if you like, needs to be created. The plan needs to reflect small steps and not a big bang approach, a crawl before we walk approach if you like. Therefore I'm suggesting we look to make this a 5-year plan. Ties in well with the 2018 IT remarks that James mentioned a few minutes ago. And a 5-year plan that will engage councils and their CEOs and will send a very clear message of change to the state government. To lead this, we'll need a clear governance structure. So my proposal is that the MAV establish a special committee to lead this future change in local government agenda, one made up of leaders from local government around Victoria who have a vision and a passion to make this happen. And I believe personally that the special committee should report directly to the board of MAV, to the board of management. Early opportunities I think are likely to come from shared services across information management, such as those based in the cloud. But I think more broadly the early opportunities will come from shared corporate services more generally, including payroll, accounts payable, accounts receivable, councils being able to join existing tendered contracts, rate notices and collections, and as we've touched on several times, consistency across core services and information management application systems. Indeed, my corporate services director colleagues and I in the 8 Northern Metro Councils have already embarked on such a shared corporate services vision. And I'd like to recognise James Scott from Moreland City Council and Tammy Rose from Mitchell Shire, who are here with me today. The Northern Metro Councils arguably already have a strong informal alliance, and that's really reflected by the Northern Horizons publication which was put out recently, which looked at the 50-year plan, infrastructure plan for the North that was been integral in terms of not only the councils involved but also Northlink in terms of the immediate priorities, the middle-term priorities and the long-term priorities over the next 50 years. To get a clear line of sight on the opportunities that are confronting us, I think, for all councils, I'd expect that MAV will probably survey all councils to receive input in identifying potential collaborative opportunities to be achieved over the next 5 years. and that the regional groups of corporate services directors, for example, such as the Northern Metro Group, will then examine these along with their CEOs. That way councils can opt in without time pressure. Going forward, opportunities in mainstream core local government services could be developed, following in the footsteps of shared corporate services as an initial point, with a future focus on not only shared cost, knowledge and capacity, but creating the potential for the have councils to assist many of the have not small rural councils in the future by signing on to a collaborative local government future focused agenda. So that's it from me. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Now, we've had a small group of people putting this future local government bid together. One of those is being Chris Meddows-Taylor. Chris, just want to say a few words to wrap up the proposals we're looking forward in the future for capacity building. Thanks, Chris.
Thanks, John. Now, someone said before that PowerPoints were not transformative. This is true. The God of transformation has ensured that the PowerPoint I present has got lost somewhere in the system. We can't find it. So I'll just talk to it. But to prove that there is one, it will appear on the website next week with all the other presentations. But it means it'll be even quicker than ever, which is the key thing at this stage. My task is just to talk briefly on tools of the future. In a nutshell, in a few seconds, to summarise the last 2 years in this area of tools and processes for the future of local government. We've been doing a lot of work collectively, led by John, a number of us working with John, in the area of piloting, testing, consulting, listening. Those of you who've been in the 2012-13 Future of Local Government Summit, remember we had those sessions at the end, voting with EGUN, remarkably similar issues about what is needed. So a lot of development work, and what we want to do now on the 10th happy anniversary is actually now proceed forward and launch some of these tools to help us move forward. And in essence, what we want to do is to have tools that help close that gap, that model that we've been using, and we've been showing where we need to be, where we are now. And the visual that you'll see is really, it has the Future of Local Government Summit, like the great glorious sun in the middle, and 4 planets or orbits that are going around in orbit. And I just want to talk about those 4 tools very briefly. Transforming conversations, what we want to do, and someone said before lunch, keep things simple. This couldn't be simpler. What we want every council to do is to have a strategic conversation, use an assembly time workshop, to have a conversation around the very issues we've been talking around at the summit. Talking about understanding the future and the future opportunities, confronting the reality of business as usual, and then mobilising for action. What are the priority actions? We can't, as Ian Mann said so well before, we have trouble prioritising sometimes. So we want a handful of things that take us forward. So we want each council just to simply talk through 3 questions. What are the key challenges of business as usual? What are the opportunities for the future? And what are the priority actions that take us from where we are to where we need to be? Couldn't be simpler. 3 key questions. What we want to do is have a structured conversation around those. What we're going to suggest is we'll have a process for this, emailing those into John or into us so that we can then look at those, because that's going to be important data, not only for each council, but help us understand regional priorities and issues, and of course a statewide picture. So really useful to compile those as well as data for each council. Transformative leadership is the second of those planets orbiting the sun of the Future Local Government Summit. We did some work, some of you might remember if you read the Great Civic magazine last spring, we did a pilot program on transformative leadership, and that had Tim Tamlin, the CEO of South Gippsland Shire, sharing some of the reflections of that program. What we want to do is particularly target directors, general managers, but not necessarily those levels, but to target it there to talk about leadership, transformative leadership, the process of leading this type of work forward in the context of councils, we're also balancing heavy transactional workloads. And Mike mentioned before, when Mike was giving the presentation about the future, was talking about the evolution of process and industrial revolutions. Leadership styles evolved. We'll talk about leadership styles. We want to reflect on that. We want to also, Mike mentioned about authentic leadership, a concept. So we want to deconstruct leadership, talk about it in the context of leading change and closing that gap in busy councils. So that's something that will be a particular program that we want to get going to. We've talked about regional collaboration a lot. Value Through Regions program will focus really on councils leading the reform in regional collaboration, to think not only about the economies of scale and sharing of services, but also how we build, Graham Sanson's message, building capacity and value creation through regional collaboration. And that process of prioritising the action, again think of Ian's comments, prioritising, then actually leading through that change and actually implementing it. So developing that whole process of making things happen. So focus around regional collaboration. And finally, we've mentioned before this work around championing change and talked around change. Dave Barry's presentation, a lot of people will remember it for all the clever things that he's been leading in terms of technology. I think one of the profound things was his comments about change at the end, how important and profound they were. And the championing change is about helping councils and regions move forward with the issue of change management, both in terms of prioritisation again, and identifying what is high value, the process of actually thinking creatively, thinking outside the box, and then also the issue of how we work through networked organisations, again getting back to Mike's comments of the future, and how we make things happen. So four particular offerings. What we'll do over the next few months is package those up in a way that so the detail will be there for you. Get that out, look at a process then of engaging and then making them happen. But what we think we've got now over a lot of work and a lot of input from you is some very clear offerings and tools that will take us forward and be useful tools, cost-effective tools to help us close the gap.
The points made in these propositions will be circulated to all councils in the next week or so, and we'll be asking that they should be discussed at the council table from which you come, and that you regard yourselves as being the disciples and messengers to ensure that discussion takes place. You might not agree with every point, but we would like to have them discussed at the council table, and we'll be asking for some feedback. So that's the first request we make of you. So you're not just coming here and talking and going back and nothing happens. We'd like to, a personal commitment from yourselves, if possible, to make sure that these propositions are discussed at your council table, and with the other outcomes from this event. Second thing, we did put in your satchels an invitation for nominations for the strategic planning group to be coming up to plan the plan. So when we've been meeting with councils, this is complex long-term change management. So the first thing is plan the plan. So we've asked for CEOs, directors to put their hands up, come together, and actually sit around the table and get that process underway. Because it is a transition process of some magnitude. It's not going to happen overnight. We do need to buy ourselves some time and get some brains around the table and push this forward. So that's the strategic planning group. Nominations closed by the 6th of June, and then we are also inviting council to nominate to be a council of the future. That's a council who does want to embark on this transition journey, transformative journey, and to explore, what can we do, how can we do it, etc., etc. And that's going to look very different per council, per region, across the state. That we need just to have councils put their hands up in the first instance. Yes, we'd like to be part of that sort of explorative process. So. Not committing you to anything except to be part of that journey. So we're just asking for some bottom-up support and input from councils to be discussing this at your council table, be part of the strategic planning group if you wish to. more importantly, put your hand up and be a council of the future to be able to explore collaboratively how we can push this ship forward, because it is a big exercise we've embarked on, and if we are going to be showing some leadership, it'll only come through the strength of the sector acting together. We are available if you want us to come out and talk to individual councils about all this. We've got some team of people, so includers would be seeking your advice there to what's the best thing to do. But we are discussing these things with the regional meetings of mayors and CEOs. So we are embarking on the journey. We thank you very much for your support over the last couple of days, and also most importantly for our speakers and presenters, especially people who have come from overseas, Paul Rains and Matt Skinner. Thanks very much for your time and your commitment, and especially to Paul for his intensive involvement in the exercise and agreeing to chair the sector for 2 days. So many thanks, and we'll see you next year. Thank you.